Here we go again. Today we're back for another mock draft. This is a post-regular season of the NFL mock draft. We are right before the college football playoff semifinals. They start tomorrow. We got Miami and Ole Miss, and Oregon and Indiana. Now, obviously Indiana, Oregon, that has the two best quarterbacks in the draft, head to head. Should be a fun one. And then the other one, we got Trinidad and Carson Beck. Could continue to build his stock right back up. So let's get started with pick number 1. The Raiders did get the first pick, unfortunately. I really was hoping they wouldn't. And they have a guy that could change the face of their franchise. Obviously, Mendoza won the Heisman, right? He's elite processing speed, pre-snap recognition, high velocity arm, like I've said before too, capable of driving, the ball into those tight windows. He's super composed in the pocket. He doesn't panic a lot under pressure. His main weakness, has been his mobility. He's obviously last week was a really nice sign because he was really mobile. But he doesn't offer a ton in the passing game, or the running game, compared to some other guys we're used to seeing. But clearly he is the 1-1, no doubt about it for me. So Dante Moore is my pick 2. Next best guy, all this bullshit about, he might stay in school because he doesn't want to go to the Jets. The Jets situation has probably never been better. I love it. I love the freaking O-line. The play calling's good. Garrett Wilson. You can't ask for a better receiver out of college, right? Obviously, Mendoza gets Bowers and Genty, and the most cap in the NFL, with a ton of picks. This is pretty good, too. If they keep Breece Hall, that'd be awesome for him. I know they have some impending free agents. I believe Elijah Vera Tucker's a free agent as well, but this is a simple pick. He's super talented, super talented arm, lightning quick release, really good deep ball accuracy and touch on vertical shots. He's got high football IQ as well, but he has main weakness. He does show hero ball tunnel vision. We saw that where he got super locked in on against Texas Tech. He made that one interception, but he also missed a guy on a touchdown because he just wasn't seeing it. But he's pretty good, and obviously he's a little rawer than Mendoza as he is 20 years old. But I'm very excited to see what he does in the NFL. Moving on to pick 3. Now, this is where it gets hard. I've seen some people post on Twitter and social media, just in general, about how difficult this range is because 3 to 7 really could go anywhere. There's not a dire need right here for Arizona. I saw Mel Kiper posted with Jeremiah Love. I don't love that. If they traded back, maybe I could see it, but I just don't see it. Obviously, he has him as his 1-1 like player on the board. The best player in the class. He is pretty fucking good, but he's not that elite or generational guy. Genty, elite. Barkley, that's that generational type of prospect there. But Love is pretty good still. When any team will be lucky to have him. But my pick here, I was kind of not sure where I wanted to go with this one. It was kind of Reese or Bain. I mean, Downs definitely in the equation. Receiver doesn't make sense. Obviously, tackle is a need, but at 3, I just don't see it. So my pick here is going to be Arvell Reese, who I do think is the best edge rusher, although Bain has had a really good college football playoffs. Reese is a linebacker, but he's freakish size. They also use him kind of like Nick Bonito gets used for Denver, where he's more all over the place. He's not just an all-and-out edge rusher, but yeah, like I said, freakish size, speed combo for an off-ball linebacker, high-impact tackler who dumps the opponent on contact. Any pass rush upside could double as an effective situational blitzer, like I just said. That's kind of just how Patricia uses them, and it's interesting to see kind of, an NFL defensive coordinator who was obviously in the NFL for, 10, 12 years, use a guy who's going to be a top pick in this draft. his main weakness that I've seen, he sometimes struggles to disengage when offensive linemen get their hands on his chest in direct run plays. This is not more in the passing game, but more in the run game there. So moving on to pick 4. Now I wanted to go a couple different ways here. I kind of was all flip flopped. Tate, I just don't see him going ahead of Tyson right now. But it's Bain or Tyson for me, and I do think you got to get the receiver, and I think Tyson's the pick. I've said a couple times I really love Tyson in this draft. He's such a good talent. Tate, I like him, but I just don't think he's that type of prospect like Tyson is. Elite body control and late hands and contested catches. He's a dynamic red zone threat who plays much larger than his 6'2" build. He's got really polished footwork as well that creates easy separation at the break. But like I've said before, his main issue is his mounting injury history. Obviously, knee injury, collarbone injury, hamstring, major issue going into his NFL career. Obviously, this year he was injured on and off a couple times. Obviously, like the whole team was basically hurt, and the year before he was also hurt. But I just don't think you're going to pass up on the talent here. I would be really disappointed if he was injury prone for his NFL career. Now, moving on to pick 5, and I do think the Giants are going to hire John Harbaugh, so this kind of plays into this pick here for me. I do think Caleb Downs is the exact type of prospect he wants because he is the type of prospect he got when he took Kyle Hamilton. He's one of the best safety prospects I've ever seen. Generational instincts, often arrives at the ball before the receiver. He's a surefire tackler who rarely misses in the open field. Scheme versatile, can play deep in the box or net nickel. Like I've said before, he could pretty much play anywhere on defense. Like he's just that good. And again, that's another guy who's benefiting from playing under an NFL defensive coordinator like Matt Patricia, who obviously was pretty good in the NFL for a while. He's fast, but he lacks track speed. Can occasionally be outrun by elite NFL vertical threats if he loses his cushion. So moving on to pick 6. Now this one was hard for me too, as the Browns could do a multitude of things like any of these other picks. Ruben Bain, definitely on the cards. Cornell Tate, obviously desperately need a receiver, but I opted to go with an offensive lineman with Spencer Fano. Obviously, he won the award for the best offensive lineman in college football this season. He's got exceptional lateral agility and mirror ability against speed. He uses his hands independently to disrupt pass rusher timing. He's highly effective at climbing in the second level in zone schemes. But his weakness, he lacks the massive NFL power rushers can sometimes be able to push him back into the quarterback, kind of like the power anchor basically for him, and that's what's basically his biggest issue there. But he is a pretty good prospect, and I do think the Browns would benefit from him as they have a desperate need at that left tackle spot, like I've said all year. Their offensive line's been really injured, and whoever's at quarterback next year, they will need somebody like him helping them out. Now, pick number 7 with the Washington Commanders, and right now, 2 guys fall in their lap, even 3 with Love. Bain, Tate, Love, any of them are great. I think Bain's perfect because I do need that edge rusher way more. I do think they need a receiver, but I think Bain is a insane value pick at 7. He's really good first step burst, natural low leverage profile. He's got heavy, violent hands that displace offensive tackles instantly. Obviously, OSU has some really good, offensive linemen. They're like one of the best schools in all of college football, and he played really well there. He played really well against Texas A&M after their best offensive lineman talked so much shit. He put in fucking great work, and he was killing them all game. And he's been, like I said, he's been killing it all playoffs. He's been huge. And again, another guy that's benefiting from NFL, former NFL guy, Jason Taylor, one of the best pass rushers of all time for the Miami Dolphins, and he's been huge in Bain's development too. So Another another pro here, just a relentless motor. He often records sacks, even on the second or third effort. He wins with, but like his weakness here, wins with power and twitch, but doesn't have the elite bend to dip his shoulder and turn sharp corners. It's kind of a little niche like um, to take that out like on him, but that's just that's what most people have as one of his cons there, or his weakness, whatever you want to call it. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints, Carnell Tate, prototypical X receiver size with a massive catch radius, and he would be perfect for the Saints, in my opinion, because they need that receiver. Obviously, they have Olave, they have Von Vele, John Juan Johnson. They really could use Love here, but I do think Tate makes more sense, and obviously you want to help out your rookie quarterback as much as you can. I think the offensive line's been good, too, and I think Tate would make sense. Besides that, significantly improvement in beating press coverage. He's just a super disciplined route runner who doesn't really miss an assignment. I mean, he's just a very good catcher of the football, too. Um, he struggles to sink his hips and stop quickly on a comeback or hitch routes due to his long legs. I mean, obviously, I've seen some people talk about this clip last week where Sayan threw a terrible pass and he didn't go in on it. It looked like BTJ type thing. I'm not really concerned about that so much. Miami's guys are super hard hitting, and that was a terrible pass. So, moving on to Jeremiah Love. Like I said, I don't think he's generational, but he is an elite prospect. And I do think he's the perfect guy for Kansas City, unfortunately. And I would hate to see him, Genty, and Hampton, all in, 6 times a year. He's got really good speed. If he hits a secondary, he's gone. I mean, we've seen that countless times against teams that Notre Dame played all year. He's a really good receiver. He's a 3-down back. He's got super soft hands. High level contact balance for a speed-based runner, too. Just his only weakness would be his vision. He looks for the big bounce outside rather than taking the tough, 3 yards, because he's trying to get that home run. You know what I mean? But that's more of a problem at the pro level rather than in college football, and that's why I think he'll fall a little bit too. It's just not. He's not as good as the other guys that have been drafted this high previously, like Bijan, um, Barkley, just to name a few. Really, you could keep going farther back after that too. I was only 10 when Trent Richardson got drafted, so I can't really compare him to that, but that's the only other guy that I could think of that went really high at running back. Um, Now moving on to Cincinnati, and I do think Shamar Stewart is just terrible, so I do think Ed Rusher would make sense, and David Bailey is a guy who keeps going up boards, and I think he'd be perfect for him. He's got elite explosiveness. I've seen him mocked all the way to 3 a couple times, but elite explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, effective speed to power transition that catches tackles off guard. He's capable of dropping into short zones and playing the pass. But his weakness, high pad level, tends to play too upright, which allows the blockers to get under his pads and neutralize his rushing ability. So yeah. And then moving on to pick 11, which I didn't know how to pick because the Dolphins are a weird one. Who is definitely a team that I could see trading up. But I think Mansour Delane, the best college football corner or defensive back this year, is the pick. Yeah. So he's got a long athletic frame that fits the press man NFL mold, sticky coverage through the entire route stem, but he just is known to be bullied a little bit or worked off by larger receivers at the catch point. But I do think he's the best. It was the most sure prospect at the corner position in this draft. Although I really do like Terrell, like I've said a couple times. Moving on to Keldrick Folk at pick number 12. The Cowboys desperately need an edge rusher. Obviously, Parsons left, and the sad passing of Marshawn Kneeland. But Keldrick Folk here would make sense. He's got rare physical traits, size and length, that allow him to anchor the run. Surprising nimbleness for a player of his huge stature. But his weakness is pass rush plan still relies too much on his raw athleticism. Needs to develop a more consistent counter move as well. But I think Dallas is a good place for him, and I think he would be. I think he'd be pretty good there. Obviously, they have Quentin Williams up front as well, and Overshawn uh, on one side, but he's more of a linebacker too, Overshawn. So moving on to pick 13, I pretty much had the same type of guy projected here the whole time. I had Fano before, but Mawaga just makes more sense now because, well, Fano's not there. But I do think Mawaga is a pretty good player, and he's had a good playoffs as well. He's a massively powerful run blocker who creates huge lanes. The Rams do love to run the ball. Obviously, they have two running backs who've had pretty good years. He's a strong anchor that is nearly impossible to bull rush, but his weakness just can be his foot speed. Can look heavy-footed when asked to pull or move laterally in space. But I trust McVay. Most of these picks that he gets, they do work. They don't have a lot of bad picks, the Rams, ever. And I think Milwaukee would be perfect. Obviously, their offensive line's been a little injured and a little lackluster. Obviously, DJ Humphries was playing in that Seattle game, and he was fucking horrible. And the Cardinals game, too. Not the Cardinals, the Falcons game, sorry. So, yeah. And then moving on to pick 14, and I think just best player available here, Peter Woods just is a killer pick for them. Like I said before, they've had multiple guys, Michael Pierce, Matabuike, just these guys that are Holoti Nakata, just these guys up front who have just been so dominant for years for them, and I think this is just another one. Obviously, it's a post-Harbaugh era. We don't even know who's going to be their coach. So, Peter Woods, he's a pretty sure pick. He's explosive interior get-off that creates an instant backfield havoc. High-level leverage and pop in his hands, but his length is just shorter than average arms, can make it hard for him to shed blocks once a lineman locks onto him. So, moving on to pick 15, I have had Sadiq here most of the time, but I'm going to go differently here because I do think Levante David is going to retire, and I think Sonny Styles is, well, he's definitely the best linebacker in the class, and he would be perfect for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after they lose their best ever linebacker. Derek Brooks obviously was there, and then Levante David. Getting another guy like that, Sonny Styles, would be awesome. He's definitely the best linebacker of the class. Obviously, you have Anthony Hill, C.J. Allen, just to name a few. And somebody else actually went back to school as well. I just cannot recall his name. That was one of the higher linebackers out there. Now, pick 16. I do like taking a corner here, but I'm going to actually go out of my way to say I think they get him a weapon, and I'm going to go Mekhi Lemon, and I do really love Lemon for this team. I think he's the best. Even out of the slot, obviously he's a slot receiver per se, right? He has just been so good for USC, and if you watch the film, you could see how bad the quarterback play is for him and how good he's been able to do with that. He's just a super twitchy player in the short area. He creates space instantly. He's an elite route runner. He fights for every yard after the catch. He is literally a clone of St. Brown. Both went to USC. Obviously, like I've said before, his small frame just makes him a target for press man corners who try to jam him at the line. But still, even against man, he has been very good. So, yeah. Moving on to pick 17 here. And the Lions could use a couple different things. Now, corner, obviously, would be, number one, right? Tackle, inside offensive line, any of those guys really work. But I think the best corner here is Terrell, and I think he's the pick. He's got fluid hips and excellent body control and transition. highly instinctive playmaker with great ball production. Just his recovery speed is the glaring issue. If he gets beaten at the line, he doesn't always have the second year to catch up. But I do think he's a very good talent. Obviously, his brother's, you know, Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber corner for a couple years. So I think he might be even better too. I mean, if you've seen his film, it is incredible to watch. So moving on to corner, Jermon McCoy here for the Minnesota Vikings is my pick. Um, they don't have a lot of needs, in my opinion. I mean, off the line, I considered Sadiq's not terrible. Defensive line, I think McCoy's the best pick. I do think you need a corner here, and I mean, he's a former receiver. He's got elite ball skills and tracking ability, high IQ defender who baits quarterbacks into bad throws. Obviously, playing on offense helped him significantly, but he's coming off a torn ACL, which is going to impact his lateral quickness early on in his pro career. Obviously, we'll see if he's, he didn't play all year, so we'll see if he's ready for week one or what impact they get out of him as a rookie. But I do think he's a good prospect. I just think Terrell might get picked over him, um, and I'm going to predict so. So moving on to the Carolina Panthers, who I've said a couple times they do need a pass catcher. I have had Lemon there a couple times, and obviously they made playoffs, so they're at pick 19. It's a weird situation that they're in, because obviously they spent a first round pick on Leggett, 2024. He's been fucking terrible. Jalen Coker, who's a 7th round pick, or sorry, undrafted free agent from Holy Cross, has been better than Leggett. Not good. They don't have a tight end really either, and I think Sadiq makes sense. I know there's been some more concerns, and people have said, the guy behind him, Jamar Johnson, is a better player. I don't think so. I still think Sadiq's a top 20 pick. He is just he's a wide receiver on a tight end's body. He's too fast for linebackers to cover. He's a massive threat on seam routes and deep crosses. Just his blocking is very raw as an inline blocker, and he lacks the lower body strength to move NFL defensive ends. And that's been known to be his issue here. Apologies for the technical difficulty there. The site stopped working, so we are back here. Like I said, Sadiq at 19 was my last pick. Now pick number 20 with the Dallas Cowboys. So, the Cowboys, they do have a couple needs here. And I don't think offensive tackle's one, like they say. They're saying I should take Proctor. I don't think that's a pick there. Linebacker, apparently Javonte Williams is going to be extended. That was the report earlier today. So there's not really any running back here anyway. In all reality, I mean, I say that, but Price, Washington, Coleman, Johnson, Haynes. Haynes probably going to go back to school anyway. So right here at 20, it's kind of just a situation of what they're looking for. Cade McDonald's definitely an option, but I think C.J. Allen's a pick here. There's not really a corner. I mean, I could totally see Cisse at 20. It's a little bit of a reach, but C.J. Allen is a thumper who excels in downhill run defense. He's relentless pursuit speed from sideline to sideline, but he's just a bit stiff when asked to mirror shifty running backs in space. That's been his biggest issue. Now at 21, this is going to be a little controversial because people aren't sure what round he's going to go or where he's going to go. He did declare for the draft today, and I'm glad to see it because if you're learning from the mistakes of quarterbacks ahead of you in the years prior, Aller, Klubnik, Nussmeier, Beck, to say a few, they all stayed in school another year, and they all made a mistake doing it because all of their draft stocks plummeted, and Ty Simpson probably will still go first round here or day 2. We'll see where he goes. He was a pretty good quarterback this year, and I did have him going as high as top 5, but he did struggle at the end of the year. He had some injuries, and he kind of just has plummeted a little bit, but he's elite off script ability, makes plays when things break down. He could throw from multiple arm angles with high velocity. I mean, with Bama too, the lack of the run game at the end of the season was a big problem for him, and obviously the Steelers are a very run-friendly team. Um, just he is a decent runner of the football too, but decision timing is his main weakness. He does tend to hold the ball on too long, looking for a big play, leading to the sacks, which we saw, in that Indiana game, we saw in the Georgia game, even LSU back in the regular season or whatever we want to call it. But I do think Simpson is still going to go in the first round, and I'm predicting he goes to the Steelers at 21. Now 22, I mean, this is kind of just like the home run pick. It's just so obvious that they take him because of how bad they need him. Um, their inside offensive line has been terrible. Obviously, Bozeman's been awful. Becton's been terrible. Pipkin's been hurt. But Iona is the clear best offensive guard on the table. He's a powerful road grader with heavy hands in the run game. He's excellent at resetting his anchor and pass protection. He just gets top heavy with his balance and leans forward, making him susceptible to swim and pull pass moves. So, moving on to pick 23. Could go a couple ways. I don't hate the receiver route, offensive tackle in their edge as well, but I'm going to go with offensive tackle with the big Caden Proctor at 23 for the Eagles. He has a massive 6'7", 360-pound frame that is naturally imposing. High level power, once he's locked on, the rep is over. His weight management is the big problem. He struggled with consistency in conditioning and foot speed at his highest playing levels, but I do think Philly is a perfect spot for him because obviously their offensive line coach has always been great developing players and fixing players and getting the best out of players. And I do think Lane Johnson could be on his way out because of how injured he's been this year. And obviously he's getting pretty old. This is year 12 for him, I believe. He was drafted in 2013, pick number 4. And I think, I think Proctor would be a good pick, and I think Philly is one of those spots I think he could succeed in, because he is a questionable prospect, definitely. So, moving on to pick 24, Boston definitely in play, and the other guy is Casey Concepcion. But I do think Concepcion's better. He's got elite twitch and suddenness at the top of his routes. Another guy who's just benefiting, from his transferring to a bigger school. But the quarterback play, just like Lemon, has been fucking pathetic for him. Marcel Reed is pretty athletic, but he's just not a good prospect. Besides that, for Concepcion, extremely versatile, can be used in the backfield with slot. He's just concentration drops, occasionally take his eyes off the ball to look for a running lane before securing the catch. You saw this a couple times. I've seen this against South Carolina. I don't think against Miami, but Texas as well. He did do that too. But that's not a huge issue for him. He's a pretty good prospect, and he's got a lead speed. Cassius Howell is my pick at 25. I do think the Bears need an edge rusher. It's kind of the pick between McDonald or Howell because of how bad their defensive line has been. That's kind of just the main concern with this defense. The linebacker core could definitely be improved, but I don't think you're going to reach an Anthony Hill at pick 25, although I don't think it's a huge reach. I think Howell's a really good prospect. High-end speed rusher with a great dip and bend around the edge. Refined hand usage for a younger prospect. Obviously, he's a third-year player. Lean frame in the run support, but makes it difficult for him to hold the edge against power run teams. So, moving on to 26 with the Niners, I do think receivers in play, offensive tackles definitely in play. But I do think interior defensive line would be huge. Caden McDonald's a very good prospect. Massive interior anchor who is very difficult to move off his spot. Surprising short area burst for a 315-pound player. But his weakness just is his stamina. High energy style leads to quick fatigue. Currently more of a rotational snap count player than a 3-down starter. Obviously, he's with Matt Patricia, another guy who's benefiting from that NFL coach as a defensive coordinator. Now, moving on to pick number 27. The Texans, and I'm going to go offensive tackle. Caleb Lomu is a good prospect here. clean pass protection, sets with very advanced footwork, natural knee bend and balance. Lower body bulk is his big weakness. He needs to add significant muscle to his legs to handle NFL caliber bull rushes. Yeah, moving on to pick number 28. Denzel Boston is my pick. Elite box out ability and catch radius at 6'4". Another guy with a fucking terrible quarterback situation. This guy, he commits back to re-signing with Washington, and now he's going to go to LSU apparently. So, very physical blocker, which is great for a receiver, and that's exactly what you want to see. For for anybody, but obviously, when you have Judkins, having a guy who could block is pretty nice. He just doesn't create a lot of daylight between himself and the corner. He just relies on winning 50-50 balls a little too much. But I think he's a very good prospect. He's still my wide receiver 5, but I think Concepcion is a better prospect. Pick 29 with the Rams. I do think Brandon Cisse is the pick. He's got elite recovery speed, closing burst when the ball is in the air. He's versatile enough to play outside or the safety even. He's just grabby a little too much. He's overly handsy on the break, leading to frequent pass interference penalties. Obviously, it's a little different at the NFL level because it's the spot of the foul rather than just 15 yards. So that is something he will have to cut out on at the pro level. And I think McVay, again, is just, I trust him with a guy who's a pretty sure thing with one glaring issue. You know what I mean? If he could fix Emmanuel Forbes, who's one of the worst players I've ever seen with Washington, he might be able to do it for them. So, moving on to pick 30. TJ Parker's a pick. The Pats do need an edge rusher here, and he's obviously falling down here a little bit for me today. High-level technique and hand placement for his age. Disciplined run defender who rarely loses his edge. He just lacks the athletic ceiling, the freakish twitch or length of the elite edges in the top 10, like Bailey, Reese, Bain. But he's still a very good prospect. Obviously, he's dropped a little this year due to his own performance, but I still think he's a first-round pick. And then the Broncos, I'd love if we took a linebacker. I just don't know if Anthony Hill's a pick. I think the best guy available here, though, is Caleb Banks. Obviously, he's a rare size-length combo that makes him a pocket collapsing force. He's strong enough to eat double teams and stay square. I do think John Franklin Myers is probably on his way out because he's an expiring free agent. But his pad level, he frequently just plays too high, which negates his natural power advantage. And then pick 32, Colton Hood is the pick once again. Every time I pick the same guy for them. But he's infectious energy, high-level competitiveness in man coverage. He's aggressive in the run support, tackles like a safety. He just has bail technique, sometimes panics and turns his back to the ball too early when expecting a deep shot. But I think, that's a pretty decent need for them at corner. So I think that is a good pick. I did more research as from all these players. I'm trying to get more points into my picks and why and my opinions and whatnot. So yeah, best guy left up there I think was Matayo Ugalele. And yeah, let me know what y'all think, and I will see you in the next one for my NFL picks, which will be out on Saturday. Hopefully we have a good playoffs. Peace out.